Hey everybody, it's Alan, and I hope you are doing well. So January 26th, just this past weekend, was Eddie Van Halen's birthday, and I want to do a video that I think is going to be kind of fun. A lot of YouTube channels, especially reaction channels, have done videos featuring Eddie, and specifically featuring the Live Without a Net guitar solo that runs about 13 to 14 minutes long. Of course, it's titled Eruption, but as a guitar player and a big Van Halen fan right from the very get-go, I know, as many of you do, I'm sure, that guitar solo isn't specifically Eruption. It's made up of a bunch of classic Van Halen guitar instrumentals from over the years of Van Halen albums. And so I thought it would be interesting. Please bear in mind, I've already done a video on that exact performance, but I thought it would be kind of fun to listen to the original studio takes of these individual guitar instrumentals. And so I tried to put them in the order that they were played in the Live Without a Net concert video. And, you know, it's kind of hard to get exactly right because he shuffles things around quite a bit in the live performance. But this is the order as best as I can put it together for you. So we're going to start off with Van Halen performing 316. Now, of course, as all of us Van Halen fans know, the Live Without a Net performance was done in somewhere around 85, 86. And 316 was recorded in the studio for the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album, which, of course, came out some years later. He eventually named that riff that he was playing at the beginning of the Live Without a Net performance 316 in celebration of his son Wolfgang's birthday. And so, yes, the Live Without a Net version precedes the studio version, but it was clearly something that he had been working on for quite a little while. So now we move on to, of course, the actual song Eruption from Van Halen 1. still to this day one of the most mind-blowing guitar sounds of all time. You know, it's the most earth-shattering guitar tone and guitar event from the point of Foxy Lady to, Eruption. You're talking about a 10-year period of time right there. And nothing, sort of tilted the world off of its axis quite like the first time guitar players heard Eruption on Van Halen 1. Following that, of course, is the section of the guitar solo from Cathedral. Now, of course, when many of us guitar players heard that, we're like, what is he doing? I mean, I don't know anybody who really thought about using the volume knob on the guitar in conjunction with a delay pedal until Eddie did it. And then it became sort of a thing, but nobody really ever did it quite the way that Eddie did it in regards to sort of creating this faux sort of bowed violin, cello kind of guitar sound. And, when I watch people do the reaction videos to this, you can tell that most of them have never picked up a guitar because they are not even paying attention to Eddie not picking a note. Everything is done with the volume knob and hammer-ons and pull-offs. And so you, again, watch these people and their minds are absolutely blown. And truth be told, I can do the violin swell thing. I can't do it with pure hammer-ons and pull-offs. I use my little finger around the volume knob and I still pick a lot of the notes. I've never been able to fully master Eddie's technique in regards to Cathedral. The next section in the live performance, of course, is something very, very similar to the intro to Mean Street. Now, he ends that doing something a little bit more percussive and melodic towards the very end of it with sort of this almost Japanese sounding technique that's a little reminiscent of what Eric Johnson would later call his koto technique, where he's tapping the harmonic 12 frets above the original note and then bending the note to give it sort of a Japanese style bend to it. Yeah. And then we finish up with the two other songs that sort of Eddie references while playing that guitar solo, which of course would be Little Guitars and Spanish Fly. There we go. Now, one of the things that makes all of that so impressive, Spanish Fly and little guitars specifically, but I'll even throw in 316 at the top of it. He's doing these techniques and doing this work on acoustic guitars and nylon string guitars. And again, most of us as guitar players wouldn't necessarily picture Eddie Van Halen's just playing acoustic guitars or nylon string guitars. There's nothing for him to hide behind. With the electric guitar stuff, you can drown it in reverb, you can add delays, you can do different things to sort of emphasize the effect that he was going for. But when you're talking about Spanish Fly and little guitars, it's all acoustic. So it's all just him utilizing these techniques on an instrument that he can't hide behind any of the effects. Yeah, there's a little bit of reverb in the studio, but it's not dramatic like, pumping a big reverb with a long delay to create the cathedral sound. It just goes to show, you notice that all of these, of course, are on pretty much different albums, too, over the course of about a 10 to 12 year period of time. That is a clear indication that he was constantly exploring his boundaries, his techniques, and working on different things that he could do that other people just weren't thinking of. And though people would come along later on in time and sort of, quote unquote, perfect some of these techniques, nobody ever did it quite like Eddie Van Halen. I think the closest person that I would give credit towards sort of still retaining some of that Van Halen-like playing style would be Vito Bratta from White Lion. I never really considered Steve Vai or Joe Satriani or any of the other tapping wizards to really hone in on the things that made Eddie special. And of course, as you're listening to this, you'll notice that not everything is based on that one tapping technique. There's other things going on here. Percussive slapping, again, hammer-ons and pull-offs, butterfly picking, with his wrist just flying around. Obviously, volume swells and usage of delays. There's just so much that he was willing to push and innovate and use. And there really has never been and probably will never be a musician or specifically a guitar player who will ever create that earth-shattering feeling that everybody in the guitar playing world specifically felt when Van Halen 1 came out, and then when all of the subsequent guitar tracks came out, and the live performances, and the mastery of grabbing an audience in his hands and just holding them for 10 or 15 minutes while he showcased his amazing ability. And let's face it, as guitar players, when we went to see Van Halen, as much as I adore Michael Anthony and or Wolfgang Van Halen and Alex Van Halen and David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, and even even the Gary Cherone era, as much as I really appreciate all of their talents, guitar players went to see Eddie. We all went to see Eddie. You did. We all did. And to say that I got to see him a few times, I honestly feel blessed. I mean, I've got to see a lot of my guitar heroes over the years, including Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jeff Beck and, Jeff Healey and B.B. King and Buddy Guy. And honestly, and I'm a huge Ty Tabor fan and a huge Warren Haynes fan, but honestly, nobody shook my world like Eddie Van Halen did. And I think if we're honest, even those who want to deny that Eddie is one of the greatest of all times, you even if you're going to be honest and unbiased about it because you think Randy Rhoads is a better guitar player, or Yngwie Malmsteen is a better guitar player, or Steve Vai is a better guitar player, or hell, Eric Clapton is a better guitar player, you cannot deny the earth-shaking effect that Eddie had when he burst onto the scene in the late 1970s. And so we remember Eddie Van Halen on or around the anniversary celebration of his birthday. And I hope hearing these studio versions, not just the live performance, but these studio versions and how beautiful and clean and articulated he was in each one of these, I hope this stands as a great, sort of reminder of what Eddie was and the effect that he had on the musical ear when he would put out a new album or a new instrumental or do something that you just never heard before. And all the respect in the world, and rest in peace to the legend. I hope you all enjoyed that. Please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. We can talk about it further. Just know that I appreciate all of you, and I wish you well. Take care.